Welcome to Activism and Resistance in the 21st Century. Brought to you in part by Women's and Gender Sexuality Studies. Yeah, WGSS. WGSS. That's our partner. My name's Adela. Hello. I'm the coordinator for student engagement and belonging. My pronouns are she and her. I am going to start with a land acknowledgement, which I like to do every time. As someone who lives and works on these lands, I am building a relationship of gratitude and commitment. My daily thanks to Mother Earth and my plan to learn about the history of this place and to help others learn are meaningful steps in caring for and stewarding these lands and waters. In doing so, I honor the enduring relationship of the Mohican, Haudenosaunee, and Scoutacook peoples whose ancestral homelands this is. May my journey of learning and sharing deepen my connection and responsibilities here. I would also like to uplift the ongoing effects of the MAFA, which is the African Holocaust, and the kidnapped and enslaved people who were forced to work the land that was taken through violence and genocide. So today we have Jenson. Woo! Woo! Jenson is a transgender athlete, advocate, doctor of physical therapy, and four-time competitor on American Ninja Warrior, seasons 10, 14, 15, and 17. As one of the few openly transgender athletes to compete on the course's national stage, Jenson uses his platform to advocate for visibility, inclusion, and equity within the world of sports. Through his journey as both an athlete and activist, Jenson shares firsthand insight into the challenges and triumphs of navigating gender, identity, and representation in athletics. His work emphasizes the power of authenticity, community, representation, and resilience. Welcome, Jenson.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Wow. All right, cool. Thank you, Ariel.
Yes, thank you.
Intro. I'm Jenson. You might have seen that I was Jenson Little, but I just got legally married. So it's Gimadio going forward. So Jenson Gimadio. So my presentation is, my motto on Ninja, my logo on Ninja. I'll show you guys over here. Is a trans ninja. So when I compete on the show, I use this logo. It is a trans ninja, not the trans ninja, because the goal is that there's going to be so many more of us go. So my presentation today is belonging in sports as a transgender person, and it is the perspective from me, someone who's been on American Ninja Warrior, and someone who's a physical therapist. I'm going to go through kind of what representation means, its importance, kind of my, what I lean towards in advocacy, which is storytelling, and kind of the evidence for inclusion in sports. How do I work this thing?
Keyboard, pull out.
Yeah, there you go. There.
I'm new to this. So who am I? Besides being Jenson, I'm someone who grew up in upstate New York. So I grew up in Mayfield. Has anyone heard of Mayfield? No, solid. Mayfield is upstate New York. It's like the Saguenay Lake. It's very rural. There's lots of cornfields. We had like 70 kids in my class. So I went to school there, but then I moved to Albany. I went to school at Sage College of Albany, which is now Blanket Russell Sage College. And I went to the grad school in Detroit. And now I went there and I got my doctorate in physical therapy. So that's what I do now. I have worked at a place called the Center for Disability Services over the last 6 years. It's in Albany, New York. And I work with folks who have developmental disabilities, so people who were born with like cerebral palsy, if anyone's heard of that. Does everyone know what cerebral palsy is? CP is neurologic disorder that you're born with where you might have, like a brain injury at birth. So it presents with like motor impairments, like a lot of people have really high muscle may not result in cognitive impairment. Someone could be, totally cognitively with it and a power wheelchair user because of their motor impairments. There's a lot of presentations, but we work with a lot of folks who live with cerebral palsy and diagnoses like Down syndrome. And I help them stay moving and doing the things that they need to do in life, like just every day getting in and out of bed and to and from their wheelchair, stuff like that. So I've been a physical therapist for 6 years, ever since I graduated. I've worked down there, and I am one of the founding members of our DEI committee. So we started that 3 years ago, and we also started a program called Centering Stories, which is kind of like, if anyone's heard of the Human Library, has anyone heard of that? No? Okay, so the Human Library is, I'm just gonna keep asking that stuff. The Human Library is like a collection of real lived experiences where people can go to, they have it on a database, and it's just people from different like marginalized communities sharing their lived experiences with the world. So we started one, I'm gonna call it our rip off of that. So we do that at my job, and we present to that. Our organization's like 3,000 people, employees, and it's like 80 plus locations, so it is a big organization, so it's fun to be able to go and share that stuff with others. Outside of work, as I told you, I do Ninja Warrior, so I train as an athlete and I also coach. I am a rock climber, so I do that stuff, and yeah, mostly lots of outdoor stuff. Yeah. What to anticipate in this presentation? I'm gonna share with you what Ninja looks like. Has anyone ever seen the show? Alright, sick. I love that. So for anyone who doesn't know what Ninja is, I'll share with you a little bit what that looks like. Share my run. I will go over, why representation for the trans community matters. I'll go over the advocacy approaches that I lean into in my life. I'll share with you my story that I tend to present at the events I put on for my job, and when I go into like Ninja events. We'll briefly go over kind of what the research, the numbers, and the data say for trans participation in sports, and then we'll end with questions and discussion, anything that you guys have. All right, cool. All right, so what is American Ninja Warrior? So a lot of y'all have seen it, but for anyone who hasn't, it is a sports entertainment competition where athletes navigate a series of increasingly difficult obstacle courses. It combines a physically demanding real competition, like of obstacle courses, with like the narrative of it being like a reality TV show. It's a lot of people also telling their stories. So they've got the sport aspect and then the reality aspect of it. They do a really good job of sharing stories. So I love the show for that. I'm gonna share with y'all just a video of what some of these obstacles look like. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Cool, okay.
Very violent.
Oh, sick.
Yeah, so what you all saw was some of the training that I do for the show. So I train, we have a local gym that's really close to here. It's called UAlbany Ninja Lab, and it's at Crossgates Commons. So I train there. They have adult nights on Tuesday nights. But there's also gyms all over the Northeast. You saw a couple other places on there. And there's leagues that you can compete in that like replicate the show essentially. So all these gyms like hold competitions, which is awesome. And so I've been doing that, and I've also been coaching. So I coach a travel competition team, and there's kids who are like ages 6 to 18, and they all travel and they go to these competitions. So it's really cool because I get to see like these little 6-year-olds, and they like, some of them are now, because I've been doing it like 6 years, like the kids who started at 12 are like 18 now, and they're like running laps around what you just saw me do. It's kind of insane. Yeah, no, it's a really fun job though. So I do that on the side. So I competed on American Ninja Warrior a few times. I competed seasons 10, 14, 15, 17. And when I went on the course, it's, you know, to test, you know, what my training has done, what I'm capable of, but it's also something that I think I carried a lot of weight on myself with. Just knowing that my run could mean something to people who don't always get to see themselves represented in sport, or have been told that they don't belong, is something that has pushed me to go back time and time again. So this is my most recent run on the course, so I figured I'd share it with y'all. Yay.
It's a the transgender pride flag. The trans athlete was competing for the 4th time on Ninja Warrior. The previous 3 times he'd fallen on the second obstacle. Tonight, the physical therapist was hoping the 4th time would be the charm. Sitting back for Jenson. Okay, Jenson. He tried to keep it going on the 3rd obstacle. It was still a victory. Second obstacle. That feels good.
So yeah, my luck on the show hasn't been too great. But you can get out there and have fun. It's a blast anyway. So yeah, what'd y'all think? Anyone want to go try ninja?
I want to go in the pool.
You want to try it?
Yeah, I do.
You can totally try it. We can, I'll let you know after when it is. Yeah. Julius has tried it.
I have tried it.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll do again.
Yeah. Alright, so why representation matters? So I guess, you know, the media, especially, you know, historically and today, has not accurately portrayed trans folks. Especially recently, we're seeing the media used to paint, fear, and dehumanize us. We're regarded as, you know, harmful for just existing authentically. A lot of it is trying to promote erasure from the public eye, and we're seeing policies written that way, and we've existed throughout history, throughout our culture and other cultures. There's always been trans people, but our stories have been hidden, and I think it's important that we change that. So what we can do with our representation is, dispel a lot of the stereotypes that we're hearing about our community. So that's something that I want to do is, dispel, that we're dangerous, all that stuff. It allows, I know that when I go out there, I've seen media where I've seen trans people represented, and it makes me feel like, all right, I can still do this, and I know that if I get out there and I show that, we're out there on the course, wherever, we can have our doctorate, stuff like that, it's I want to know that others are not alone, and that there is a whole community out there for them, and that they should have the right to thrive and do the things that they're passionate about. So that goes into the fourth point is, trying to be a role model, because as we get older, we are the role models for the future. So we're helping shape that. Representation, shapes safety across access to resources, and it really does. It helps the next generation see the world as being capable of being theirs. And as I was writing this presentation, I actually found from the Trans Empowerment Project, I don't know if anyone's heard of them, they have this thing they call Taking Back the Narrative, and they say it's our stories, not theirs, and it actually does exactly what I am very passionate about, and it shares the stories of trans folks, and any trans folk person is welcome to share their own story. So you can just go on and you can apply and write your own story down. And it's kind of like that human library, where they share just solely trans perspectives. So I thought that was really cool. I left a link. So I'm excited about that. I put in an application yesterday. My approach to advocacy, I guess, there's so many ways to advocate, and they can be big, they can be small. You can go to protest, you can call or write to your representatives, you can, donate or volunteer for different organizations that help the community. You can also, on smaller scales, have conversations or share with others just to help them learn. So I think there's big ways that we can influence the world even through a collective of small actions. You guys are all in school, so I don't know if the 3 Ps are something you guys have heard a million times or never. Is that something that you guys have heard a lot?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So the 3 Ps are to be prepared. So we always want to make sure that we know what were the points to support our cause. We want to, we need that knowledge to actually effectively make our point. Persistence, so change happens over time, and we have to remember that it's with the collective power of our community, and persistence is needed now more than ever, especially, I think, in the trans community, it feels like people are trying to silence us and erase us, so we need to remember that we've existed in this place in the past, we've gotten through it, and we can do it again. So, we always have existed and we always will. Third P that I hear is being polite, and what I think about when I think of that is coming from a centered headspace, because the reputation that I give to others is going to follow me, and it could either help or hurt my cause. So those are kind of like the core 3 Ps, but I like to add this fourth one. So I always keep in mind I call it perspectives. So teaching from the vantage of being aware of our own perspective versus the perspective that others have. It's kind of more a tool to help you along with the other P's. I think that the reality is we all live in our own bubbles. Like, we live with our people, with our media. I live with a very queer and progressive bubble of the media that I consume, the people I hang out with. But other people might have a totally different bubble than I do. So, you know, I do my presentations at work with a bunch of strangers. I don't know what they've received. I grew up in a small rural town, and I know that they have little to no interaction with trans folks. And the media that they're consuming doesn't really paint anything that's accurate. So I need to consider is this their first interaction with a transphobe person, and what maybe they have received. So if I'm the first trans person that someone has ever talked to, I think it can make like a huge difference, knowing that like maybe I have a lot of knowledge on this topic, but it is their first time hearing it. So I want to make sure that my teaching is gentle and comes from a place that they can digest it. They might not know all the facts and statistics. They just know what they heard. So I want to make sure it's at a level that they can digest. So I have those kind of mottos ingrained in me. I keep those in the back of my brain. But also when I'm doing this stuff, I make sure that I'm taking care of myself. I know that I have a lot of passion about what I do. And right now it's in the news every day. But I need to make sure that I'm compartmentalizing, that stuff with my own joy and taking care of myself. I think if I weren't to do that, I would not be able to show up as my best self when I need to. And I deserve, we all deserve to have joy. It doesn't matter where we come from. We need to make sure that we are putting our joy first. Yeah. So here is some of my joy. A little bit. I got married. That is my wife over there. So I put a few photos. We got legally married this year. There's some rock climbing, making sure I'm rock climbing, going on hikes, doing my ninja, spending time with family and friends. Bought a house this year, so that's exciting. Yeah, so exciting stuff. Make sure you're taking care of yourself, right? I gotta take care of myself. It's a lot going on this year. Yeah, it's been a lot reading the news and that. So, yeah, I've been trying to prioritize that. So then, I guess I'm leading into something that I guess this is what I use a lot, is storytelling. So I think that there's a lot of power in storytelling, so I use it often. I do my presentations, it's how I interact with a lot of people. Because I think that if you can build empathy, you can build that momentum, and if you can change people's hearts, that's when you'll see policy changes. Because you can throw as much data as you want at people, but if they already have this narrative that, I'm bad, I could give them all the knowledge in the world and they're not going to want to listen. So changing hearts before policy. All right, cool. So I think this is a good time to segue into my story that I tell. So this is the story that I would present to the people at work, to the people who maybe have never met a trans person before. So I've used this at work, I've used this at Ninja. This is is more my formal presentation, but this is what I would give at work. So I do this at my job. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. I am using the perspective when I tell this story. So this is me presenting to a room full of adults who maybe don't have experience. So here it goes. I would say, hi everyone, thank you for coming to hear my story today. My name is Jenson. I am 30 years old and I've worked at the Center for Disability Services as a physical therapist over in adult services for 6 years. Outside of work, I am an American Ninja Warrior, an athlete, an avid rock climber, an outdoors adventure enthusiast. I'm someone who loves to cook, and I'm someone who loves to eat probably even more. I am a twin brother, I'm a husband, I'm a son, a friend, and I'm a transgender man. When I say that I'm a transgender man, what this means is that I was assigned female at birth, but my gender identity is male. Being transgender is only one component of who I am as a human being, but it's an incredibly important piece for me to share. There's a lot of varying statistics out there, but from what I have gathered, the consensus is that at least 50% of individuals do not actually know a trans person. So what this essentially means is that what most people do know about trans people comes from the media. But both historically and presently, the media has not accurately represented the trans community. I'm a firm believer that trans people should be at the center of their own storytelling. My story is just one, and every trans person's story is different, but today I invite you to get to know me a little more personally. Alright, here it goes. Now you guys get to hear my full story. Alright, cool. So, I was born in Manhattan, and I grew up in Gloversville, New York. I grew up with my adoptive parents and my twin sister. Looking back on my memories of myself as a child, I always dressed like a boy. I always wanted to be the prince, the husband, and the dad when I played pretend with my friends. I remember that I used to lock myself in the bathroom and I would steal my dad's shaving cream. I would stand in the mirror and I would spread it across my jaws of my cheek and I would give myself like a fake beard. And then I'd slick my hair back. I remember like I felt so euphoric doing that. Like I would just like just do that and spend like half an hour in the bathroom. It was kind of ridiculous. But I would always before leaving the bathroom I would wipe it off and I wouldn't show anyone. When I hit the 3rd grade, I was told by my parents that I was no longer allowed to dress in boys' clothing. So at that time, you know, I think my parents were doing what they thought was best to protect me. But I definitely remember I continued to beg them to let me dress like a boy. I was pretty crushed. So I begged for a few months, but I began to accept that, you know, dressing femininely was going to be a part of my life, and that it was what I was supposed to do. However, from that point forward, I never really felt comfortable in my clothing or my skin. My parents passed away when I was 10, and I moved in with my aunt and my uncle, and that's when I moved over to Mayfield, which is that rural town we were talking about. They pretty much had the same expectations of me. Through school, I was always very active and I played basketball, soccer, and softball. I was a catcher and a goalkeeper. I won the goalkeeper of the year award and the distinguished athlete award my senior year. I had a really unique high school class. I know I said that there was like 70 kids in my class, but about 40 of us were all very close-knit friends. We all played sports together, we all hung out after school together, we all were honor students. It was kind of wild, very unique for such a small school. But I know that, even though I had like a really good like social and academic life, I really remember that I never had great self-confidence. I know I had a lot of like self-deprecating humor when I was a kid, and I remember that I often would try to doll myself up in search of external validation. I thought that gaining compliments, like if people said I was pretty, that I would feel boosted my confidence. And maybe for a moment I would feel happy that I received that validation, but it never lasted for me. And anytime I looked in the mirror, it was very fleeting. So that was my high school experience, and then I moved over to Albany for college. I studied at Russell Sage in Albany, the co-ed campus, for a bachelor's degree in biology. And then I moved over to the Troy campus to finish my graduate degree, and that's where I got my doctorate in physical therapy. Through school, I continued with soccer. I got into rock climbing, ninja, and I played flag football. I was a resident assistant through my undergraduate work, and then I was a resident director. Is there anyone in here who does Res Life? Yeah. So I had so many great friends from that. I knew when I went to college that, Albany is so much more progressive than Mayfield ever was. And I wasn't, under my parents' roof. So that's when I started exploring my masculinity again. And I cut my hair short and I started dressing like this. Just how I dressed like when I was a kid, except maybe not this fancy. But when I did this, it clicked for me. It was no wonder like why when I was a child I always wanted to play the dad or the prince or the husband. It was my moment of realization. I just knew. And in that realization, I was really afraid. It actually took me 3 years of therapy to have the courage to come out, because I was both so afraid to accept myself, but also terrified of the social implications and what my friends and my family would think, and just what society would think, how it would affect my life. But after 3 years of therapy, I did come out. I realized, I could continue living how I was, or I could say the people who love me are going to stay in my life, and that's going to be good enough for me because I deserve to be happy. So I came out, and when I did, I was really, really thankful to have a great network of friends and family to help get me through. So I had some good friends who would take me out in Albany and help me, decide if the name I chose was the right name for me. And my sister, my cousin would help my family practice my pronouns, which was awesome, because all that weight wasn't on me alone, and it was a transition for my family as well. But it helped it so that they didn't misgender me so much. So that support meant the world to me, because it made something that was really scary for me feel a lot easier. And what I tell people is that I think some people have a misconception that people choose to be trans, but I don't think that people choose it. I think I like to compare it to me being a lefty. I could try to use my right hand, and I could use my right hand, but it would feel unnatural and it would make my life feel a lot tougher. So I think that the only choice that we do have is to continue suppressing who we are, or to choose to live authentically and happy. So as I said, every trans person's story is unique, but there's definitely big obstacles for us all. For myself, to get to where I am today, it took a lot of social, legal, medical, and financial hurdles. That being said, though, all of these obstacles have been well beyond worth any of the struggles. because of my transition, I am so unbelievably filled with joy for my life. I don't think that if I didn't transition, my quality of life would look drastically different. Me being more at peace within my own skin has allowed me to form a more beautiful relationship with myself, and that has allowed me to form a more beautiful relationship with others. And it has allowed me to come out of my shell and grow and thrive in all other areas of my life. It's also allowed me to do the big things like competing in American Ninja Warrior. And it has shown me that despite the risk, that being authentic is always worth the risk. And then I always finish it off by saying, this is why sharing my story is so important to me. There is a big question in society on whether or not trans people should even exist right now. And I want the world to have a more accurate representation of my community, because I want all of my trans siblings to know that, you know, we belong and we should be allowed to have the right to exist and have joy and thrive. And then I say, thank you for coming to my story. How did that make everyone feel? Yeah? Was it? Yeah? Cool. Oh.
I cried. That was beautiful. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you. Yeah. So often after I present, I get quite a handful of questions, and left a couple that I've been asked more often than less. So I do get asked this question of like, why don't I just live as a man, and why do I have to be so public about being trans? And I guess what I say is, you know, I do have, I could do that. I could live and no one would say anything to me, but with what I just talked about, like, knowing that like most people don't know a trans person and they're fed all these narratives, I need to be out. I need to use the privilege that I have to advocate for my community. I can't just sit back while rights are being stripped away in my community and lean into silence. And I'm a very social person. I get along with a lot of people, and for those people, if they really haven't met a trans person and they think that they're not gonna like a trans person, but they like me, it's like, I'm right here, like, so I think that it can make a difference, just showing people who we really are. And then another question I get asked often is, what message do I want to spread about trans people in sports? Because people are always interested in that because of the Ninja Warrior stuff. So what I want people to take out of that is that I think it's really easy for people to see my experience when I've talked to them about it, and that it wasn't something that happened overnight, and it wasn't a decision that came lightly, and I want people to recognize that the experience of a trans man is kind of a mirror of the experience of a trans woman who wants to participate in sports. And it's so easy for people to see all the changes that have happened for me in my body, and how sports were such an integral part of me growing up and part of my identity, and for people to know that people aren't just transitioning, like, just to use a bathroom or play a sport. Like, these are life-altering, like, paths in our lives, and they don't happen overnight. They take a lot of work, and I just want people to recognize that it's not something, like, it's not the reason why people are transitioning. Like, we're not just saying, I want to go play a sport, so I'm going to be trans. Like, that's way too much work. Yeah. Oh, and I also wanted to tie in now that I've talked about my story, go back to how this looks on like a smaller scale. I have a lot of conversations with people because of how I look, where I grew up. People just assuming that I am going to agree with their narrative of trans people. I look like your everyday guy, so I'll be in my hometown or in a bathroom line or anywhere, and I will often hear transphobic comments said directly to me, thinking that I am going to be in on that. So I like to use my storytelling on a smaller scale to navigate those situations. So I lean into the perspective that I was talking to earlier, and I really try to use my privilege in that moment to, as long as I feel safe, obviously, to lean into sharing with those people in a way that they can digest, because a lot of the people from my hometown I know watch certain news outlets and they don't know anyone like me, so I know that it's their first time hearing from someone, and I know that there's a lot of opportunity in that, because like this could be the first like positive interaction they have. I could put a good taste in their mouth or a bad taste in their mouth. So I don't want to go in there throwing statistics at them. I really want to lean into the centered mindset of being kind, and what I do is I like to share. So an example of this is I'm a big snowboarder. Surprise guys, I like sports. And so I remember like I was going skiing with some friends, and they invited a few older skiers they're probably in their 60s. And we went skiing for the day, and these are some really, really experienced skiers who don't usually like snowboarders, but they let me hang with them for the day. And so we skied all day, we skied through the trees, we skied on all the advanced runs. And then afterwards, we went to the lodge and we had some drinks. And it was a really great day. If anyone snowboards or skis, you know that when the very experienced older skiers compliment the snowboarder, you don't take that lightly. It means a lot. That's like the biggest compliment in the world that a snowboarder could get. So we were vibing, we were having a great time, and I don't remember necessarily how it came up, but I do remember talking at some point about sports and competitions, and one of the guys made a comment saying, you know, I could just turn into a woman overnight now, and it threw me by a loop, but I knew that that's where he and his buddies were coming from, and yeah, he didn't think that I was going to say anything. So I turned to my friend, who was our mutual friend, and I said, I'm going to do it. He smiled at me. And I was able to share a shortened version of the story that I just shared with you all. And afterwards, the three gentlemen, they were actually like really receptive and asked me a lot of questions and apologized and said that it was brave of me to speak up. And we've skied together a few times since, and yeah, it just made it feel so much more comfortable. Like I have friends who I've heard those comments from say to me after, like, you're the first person who like I know who's trans, and it makes more sense now. So I really value them for, you know, listening to those stories. And it's not gonna work for everyone. Some people don't want to change, but some people just don't have the knowledge. So it goes a long way. Alright, cool. I guess I want to wanted to go into the numbers on sports. I think the last thing, talking about competition, talking about what I want people to take away from my presentation is that people want to participate authentically. Leads me into what the numbers are. So about 1% of people aged 13 or older identify as transgender. So that's a really, 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 really small portion of society. And trans athletes equate to less than 1.3% of overall total student athletes. So there's 10 in 500,000 NCAA athletes who identify as transgender, and less than 0.001% of Olympic athletes identify as transgender. So it's really not a lot of folks that we're talking about. The policies, recently, we've seen a lot of policy changes. So the U.S. has changed guidelines to exclude transgender girls and women from participating. Previously, NCAA guidelines said, you could be on testosterone suppression for 1 year and participate. And the Olympic guidelines were 2 years. And they also did blood testing. But we're seeing those policies change to exclude trans women. We're seeing there's 27 states currently that have passed bans on trans youth participation. And yeah, the NCAA barred trans women. The International Olympic Committee is actually now looking at following suit. But we do see it, already harming people who aren't trans. We're seeing women who have differences of sexual development or just natural variations of hormone levels, who are people who are born female at birth and they are still getting barred from participation in competition. So it's hurting not just trans people, it is hurting women as well. There's not a lot of research on trans participation in sports and the changes. So research is very limited. There's also very varying, methodology in a lot of the research. So there's definitely bias in a lot of the research that is out there. I found this article that is written by DJ Oberlin. It's from 2023, and it is a review of what is out there on trans athletes. So it's sex differences and athletic performance. Where do trans individuals fit into sports and athletics based on current research? And what it says is, in general, studies find that trans individuals following affirming hormone therapy become more similar to their gender identity post-transition, cisgender counterparts, or are somewhere between the expected male and female averages. Certain aspects of pre-transition sex seem to be less malleable, such as height and limb length, but that is also, I'm quoting, but that's also genetic variation. But it says, although these parameters may take months or years to complete this transition, the time to transition is relevant earlier in the process of transition. Trans individuals may still retain more or similar to their pre-transition gender, and the effects of transitioning become confounded with the effects of aging and changes in trans status. Due to all the potential pitfalls, a single definitive study on this topic is impossible. However, those which have been attempted can be used to glean better understanding of whether trans individuals' participation in sports and athletics is likely to lead to increased inequity or injury during sports and athletics. If you look at the research, they've been, measuring strength, measuring like heart capacity, lung capacity, all that stuff. There isn't evidence out there that supports a blanket policy. So saying that trans people cannot compete like totally is not supported. Fairness matters, but it should be evidence-based. And talking earlier, wide natural variation exists within all genders. So excluding trans people can harm more than just transgender folks. Inclusion and equity are not opposites. So I think that going forward in the future, we're gonna have to be creative in finding ways so that everyone can have a fair shot at competing. Alright, and then closing. So why does this all matter? Visibility saves lives, so knowing that you're not alone can help a lot of people. It's hard to be out there today and think that you're the only one out there and that there's not a whole community behind you. We need to represent in order to break down the stereotypes that we're seeing, all these harmful narratives that we're seeing in the media, because those societal changes are what will eventually lead to policy changes. Like I said earlier, I think changing hearts comes before policy changes will happen. So that's something that I firmly believe in. And I think that everyone deserves the chance to compete authentically. I know that sports were always a part of me, ever since I was a child. And like I said, people are not transitioning just to play sports. It's something they're doing for their life. And we just want to have the same opportunities that everyone else has. Does anyone have takeaways or questions or anything like that? I think I need a sip of water.
I'm actually curious, how did you end up even participating in American Ninja Warrior multiple times? And did you, the first time that you participated, did you do it before you were publicly out? And if so, did that change public perception?
Okay, so how did I do it, and then was I out for the first time I went on?
Yeah.
So American Ninja Warrior, for the show, you actually have to apply each year. So there's a written application, and then you actually have to send in like a 3-minute video. And essentially what most people do is they highlight their personality, their story, and then you also have to show like the video that I showed earlier, like that you physically have been training and you're capable of doing the obstacles, because they want people who can run the course, but they also want the story because it is a television show and those narratives are what's like pulling people in. So I applied that way all 4 years. No matter how many times you go on, you have to send in an application before when they, like every time there's a new season coming out, they'll send out an application to people, or you can find it online. So I applied every year pretty much between season 10 and season 17, but I got taken for 10, 14, 15, and 17. And I was out all 4 years, but when I was on season 10, which I don't even know what year that is now, it's like 8 years ago. Yeah, it must have been 2018, early 2018. I had just come out. I had just started hormones. I do remember like trying to tell my story like when I was on the show, and being very like mousy because I was like super nervous. And I remember like I talked to some of the other ninjas who were like in the holding area for interviews and stuff, and they're like, "What's your story?" And I was like, "I'm transgender." And they're like, "Say it proudly." And I was like, "Oh, I really do need to say this proudly." So yeah, I was out all 4 years, but as I like gained experience on the show, it definitely got easier. And I found that the show was actually like more so in my corner. I was a little nervous about it at first, but it's really cool that they were willing, even this year, to put trans people on the show. If anyone watches the show or hasn't watched the show, there's another kid on the show. His name is Clayton Reeves. And he was a rookie last year on season 17, and he did amazing. So if you want to see another ninja, or I could call him up on here. Yeah, Clayton was awesome. So yeah, I'm stoked that they support trans people. Yeah, thank you for that question.
Of course.
Did I answer everything that
Yeah.
anyone else? Julius.
Yeah, I have an awesome takeaway. Jenson, I know you for a few years now, but I think that I look up to you and admire you as a role model. As some students know, I work with Violet. I box a lot and go to a local boxing gym. And I actually took the other route that Jenson took, and I was like, you know what, my joy is just to be at this boxing gym. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to be trans or anything. I just want to box. But me and my best friend, we come and we go to the boxing gym together, and Jenson is very much, when you see him in this athletic gear, he is very trans visible when he is working out. So the takeaway for me was we made like 4 friends that day. 4 people came up to us into the gym and told us that they were trans, that they had no idea that anyone else in this gym was trans, that trans people would be allowed to be out and visible and trans. And for me, for that day, that made a huge impact. So much so that when I go into the gym, I'm pretty open about being trans. I disrupt conversations. And all that took was one workout with my buddy Jenson. So I really admire that you take that charge and take that lead and show how important visibility is, because there are other people in the room, not only people who are uneducated, but people who are scared. And your strength and confidence really brings that out. So I just want to say that I admire you for that.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Anyone else have anything?
Hi. I'll say something, a takeaway. I'm Jenson's wife. I'm Danielle. And one thing that
Take him away.
oh yeah. One thing that like really stuck out to me in the presentation was talking about visibility, and the question that you receive a lot after you tell your story about why not just live as a just passing man. Why do you choose to intentionally be visible as a trans man? And just for the people in this room, it's been a very, very tough year. You want to just go on social media to scroll and look at videos of cats, and you can't. You get all the information that you don't want to see, and to watch Jenson intentionally in the face of that make brave decision after brave decision, when even his wife is nervous about his safety and worried about what that visibility will do for him out in the world, and still choose to be visible for his community. I just want you to know that that to me is so powerful and brave, and yeah.
Hi.
Hi. I know that you talked about like wanting to change hearts, and in doing so, telling your story. How have you handled interactions where you have told your story and hearts were not changed and people were just like still very highly transphobic towards you?
Yeah. That's really, really tough situation to navigate. There are definitely people who, I have shared my story with, and they're like, okay, I still feel how I feel. Thankfully, you know, anyone like that is out of my life. I'm very thankful that, you know, in my job, my company backs me up, which is great. And in the sports world, I just stay away from stuff like that. I guess I chalk it up to, like, you know, we can't change everyone. There are going to be people who just don't want to hear what you have to say. But I think that more people than less actually are willing to hear people out. They just haven't heard it. Thank you for that question. I don't even know what time it is.
Good time. How
Five,
was
5:35.
5:35? Okay.
how was your experience in college, both undergrad and grad school?
Okay, that's a good question. So I think I was really lucky for my friendships that I had in college. I definitely struggled mentally more so through those years. Like, you know, I said I was in therapy for 3 years, and I don't think it was my friends or anything like that. It was more so like my family and kind of being nervous of what society would think. I knew my friends were really rad, but I think being scared of what being trans meant, and being scared, like, even accepting myself, I definitely struggled for a few years with it, and just coming to terms that, like, I need to love myself and love who I am. But yeah, it was more so like a mental struggle through that stuff. But my friends were awesome, and I'm so grateful for that. Because, like I said, they were the ones taking me out in Albany to help me. They were like, yes, you look great in that shirt, like hyping me up about my haircut and like stuff like that. So I'm very thankful for that. But yeah, definitely mentally, it took me a while. Yeah. Actually, I met you in college. It's awesome. Can I tell them?
Can you tell them that you know me?
The first time I met you.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So this is wild, but Courtney is like the first person I ever told that I was trans. And honestly, like, this ties into the whole presentation. So Courtney, you were doing a presentation at my school. I don't remember exactly what it was. It was something.
It's probably gay.
Yeah. It was something
We're talking about, like, why do we gender our cars?
Yeah. And I remember, like, I had been silently, like, struggling through that stuff with me. Like, I probably the night before took the Am I Trans test online. And I went to that presentation and I saw Courtney and I saw how successful you were, and how you were living incredibly, and I was so inspired by that. And you were like the first trans person that I knew, like, growing up. It was amazing. It was like, I don't know if I would have come out if it wasn't for that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We met at a pizza shop in the Rock Jam. You'll ever tell me you're not American Ninja Warrior then. And you did.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, of course.
Look at this reunion. It's a full circle.
It is a full circle.
Do you have another question?
Yeah, I thought of another one. So, I know that you mentioned before how difficult it can be to be a part of activism and to live authentically. There are many risks, the emotional stresses that you're also in the public eye where there's a lot of people. The sports can be very competitive. A lot of people like to watch that, people with a lot of different opinions, and how that can be very, very tough, especially because it sometimes feels like you may have a whole weight on your shoulders to represent the trans community authentically and to help give hope to youth and to the other trans communities that are also trying to be a part of the sports environment. Have there ever been any moments that really stuck out to you that made you feel like, oh, even if this is difficult, I want to keep doing this. I want to keep living as myself, and I want to keep bringing hope to people. Like, if there's any times that people personally walked up to you, like how you walked up to Courtney before and said, "You're making me want to live like myself, and you're giving me hope." Have there been any moments that really stuck out to you?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, I definitely kept going back because of like feeling like it was like I needed to be out there to represent. And I've had people reach out on social media and stuff, whether it be for themselves or for their children, just saying like that, you know, my kid or I was interested in doing ninja, but I was really nervous about going into it and seeing that you're doing it and that there is a community in it has made me feel safer to do it. And I definitely am seeing more trans folks like competing in the sport, which makes me really happy. There's actually quite a handful now, and it's awesome to see. So that makes me keep going. Yeah. Even if it's hard, it's like I know that it's helping others, and if we keep building up our community, then we'll get through it.
And that you're actually like making an impact that is actually helping bring positivity to the community as well.
Yeah. Thank you for that question.
Of course.
Yeah.
You're doing something that you love. Thanks for coming to spend time with us.
Real quick, sorry, and I know I don't want to take away from focus, but I do really like the show a lot, and I think it's super cool that you were on it. I almost wonder, just because obviously I've never been on this set of American Ninja Warrior, but like, are the actual obstacle courses like wet or slippery? Because I feel like that's why people fall all the time, because it's literally above water.
It's really
Yeah, like I feel like it's slippery and it'll mess you up, right? Or am I losing
So
my mind?
it is historically filmed outside.
Okay.
And it's dark because you are filming in the middle of the night. This is really fun. Am I over?
You're good.
No.
Alright, cool. So essentially, like, yeah, you go out there, you hop on a flight, you get interviewed, you go and you sleep all day because you know you're going to be filming all night. So you sleep during the day with your blackout curtains on, and then you go to the course at 5 p.m. They give you a walkthrough. They give you the rules. You don't get to touch anything. So everything you see like a demonstrator go across it, and they tell you like you can touch this, you can't touch this. This is feet only. Like this is hands only. And then you wait in a tent with a TV and everyone else, like between like 9 and like 5 a.m. And you run some point in that time. So there's like, if there's 100 runners, you might run first, you might run last, you probably will run somewhere in the middle, but they do their best to, you know, wipe things off when people splash. Sometimes things, the tension can be really loose on some things, the tension can be really tight on some things. So you never know like how things are gonna feel when you get on them. They can alter that however they want to. But you can't use like chalk or anything like that. So like a lot of people you'll see like when they're training will use chalk on their hands because you get a little, you know, sweaty when you're running. So then you're on it. It's like a, I don't know how to explain it. It's like a plasticky texture. So it doesn't have like that sandpaper grip, I guess. Like a lot of gym stuff, like you'll feel that sandpaper stuff. There's like texture to it, but it's more like smooth texture. But yeah, you don't get to touch it until you're there. You like walk up behind like the screen. Yeah, oopsie. So like that picture that I just had up of me with the flag, like I was sitting behind the stairs there, like while other people were running, and then like that's the first time you see it. Like you're like you step up on the stage and they're like 3, 2, 1, go, and you're like, oh wow, all right, yeah. So it's kind of a otherworldly experience. Yeah.
We should let you do like one run through. Like one
No.
practice. That'd be great.
No practice, just go.
First of all, I want to say I grew up watching the show, and I've been a huge fan for like forever. And I think I actually remember seeing you on TV the first run that you did, and that was like the first time I'd ever seen a regular trans person on TV or anything represented. So, but I just recently learned about a woman who went on the show who had designed an obstacle that focused on women's strengths rather than just men's strengths. I don't know if she recently went on the show or not, but having read the article that was provided, seeing that like the community was actually supportive, like both the showrunners, the designers, and the other competitors. I just wanted to know if any of you guys had ever had discussions about that kind of inclusivity on set, or like with the showrunners and the competitors, and what did those discussions look like?
Yeah, with the leagues that I compete in, there is a lot of discussion on that. Making obstacles that are more tailored towards like women and like their strengths as well. So some courses have started to implement obstacles that are more designed by women, which is really cool to see. And sometimes what they'll do is they'll do like a split course where like they might give like women like an obstacle course and like men like a different obstacle, and you can like kind of choose which side you want to go on. So like you might do like obstacles 1, 2, 3, and then you have like a split decision where like you can choose like, do I want to go on this like really technical, flexible, like balancy obstacle, or do I want to go on this like burly, like big throw like kind of obstacle? So that's been cool to see the sport have those conversations and move into directions that are more inclusive. Yeah, that's awesome. I love that you follow it. That's so cool. Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks all.
Thank you, everyone. Take care, everyone.
Attendance reflection is open.
That was amazing.